Everybody, Andrew E. Guy here. I'm excited. I'm pumped. I'm so pumped about what's about to happen today. Listen, I'm just talking right now about my book, the Work Your Words, Finding Your Pathway to Personal Success. And I really want to just stop by really to talk to you a little bit about knowing your triggers and how to control them. People would say that, hey, this thing triggers me, this thing ticks me off. A trigger really is really, think of it as a rifle or a gun. When you pull on a trigger, right, it activates the gun and then the bullet comes out, right? So, what we need to do is to kind of look at our emotions the same way. When we are triggered, that means it could be an emotional response based on something that was already done before and something that we have experienced. It could be a traumatic experience that we've had. And so when somebody say or do something, then it kind of brings us back to that place where we once were when the injury took place. I want to talk to you a little bit about like how do we manage that, as a speaker, author, and coach and consultant. Often ask, Andrew, how do I deal with A? How do I deal with B? And definitely, I need some strategies for dealing with all the other alphabetical curveballs that life throws at me. So, in this live today, I'm starting now to do more lives. I didn't really do much lives because I'm normally on the road. So what I'm doing right now is just pausing when I get home from a talk or something. Like I still have on my shirt here. I just ripped off my tie, and the tie is over there somewhere, and I'm in my office. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you guys. I know a lot of people are struggling with mental issues. You see it across Hollywood. Suicide have increased over the past couple of years, and even up until probably like 2 3 months ago, suicide is on the rise. And it's not to glorify suicide, but it's to help you to understand that there are some mental issues that you need to address before they get the best of you. All right. So I want to start with one by talking to you about how to know your triggers and how to control them. Okay, if this is going to be helpful to you, I want you to leave some comments inside the box. I need you to reach out to me if you have any questions, if you have any kind of mental issues that you're dealing with that are severe. I want you to reach out to your health hotline in your area, your community, your state, if you're in the United States, or your region. Help is out there, and I just want to make sure you understand that. All right, I want to read you something from one of my books here, by the way. Work Your Words, Finding Your Pathway to Personal Success. You can get that at andrewguyspeaks.com. My other book is called The Anatomy of the Kingdom and the Power of Community. And really, it's working on the spiritual aspect of who you are from a kingdom perspective. The book is based on the teachings of my mentor, Dr. Miles Monroe, the late Dr. Miles Monroe. I said late only because that's the political way of saying it, the politically correct way of saying it. But he's never late, he's always on time, because the knowledge and the wisdom that this man have will continue to dwell richly in the hearts of men for decades to come. All right, so I want to say a big shout out and big up to Dr. Miles Monroe for his influence on my life and helping me to understand the kingdom, the real kingdom. I'm talking about the Hollywood kingdom. I'm talking about the real kingdom, because the kingdom is not a church. Most people now as churchify it and made it into a church and a religion, but the kingdom really, as we know it, it is a function. It's a way of doing a specific things, a specific way, based on how the creator created it to happen. All right, so go check out the book. It is also on my website at andrewguyspeaks.com. Go check it out. It's really focused on helping you to create that power that we get from community. So let me read you a little something from this book here. One of the quote that a lot of my readers have mentioned about this book is, Andrew, the quote at the top of the book really gets me. It said, changing your thinking changes your words. I'll say it again. Changing your thinking changes your words, and right speaking changes your way of life. I'm not talking about good speaking. I'm not talking about the better speaking. I'm not talking about the best speaking. Why? Because the thing is that whenever you get into the good, better, and the best, then all of these are comparative. All of these are comparative. And if something is comparative, if it's good, you're going to want the best. And if it's the best, hey, listen, you won't rest until that part of you gets the best. So what I want to say to you, I'm going to plug in my phone here to make sure I have enough juice so that I don't run out of juice here when I'm doing my talking, when I get deeper into the discussion. Okay, so let me move this up here so I can get some juice. Boom. All right, here we go. So I'm going to plug the phone in here right here to make sure that I get that going. All right, stay with me. And good. We got power. Boom. Let's rock it out. Okay, so what are we talking about? When we're talking about this mental health stuff, we're really talking about your ability to function normally. It's a normal function that you can get up, you can think, you can understand what environment you're in, you can know if you're stressed, if you can understand your emotion, you can really kind of communicate how you're feeling without affecting somebody else, right? And this is where we get into the fine line of, okay, fine, is that an emotional outburst? Is this person disturbed? Is this person unstable? I want you to understand that you have to make sure that you understand that when you say something, that's message sent. And then when somebody hears you, that's message received. Now, communication, or real communication, is the gap between the sending and the receiving. Okay? Because that's when you have the greatest opportunity to be misunderstood. It's better to be understood than to understand. Let me say that again. It's better to be understood than to understand. It's better for someone to understand you. Being understood, meaning that the person recognizes that the message you are sending is identical to the one that they have received. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So I want to read you something from this book here. And this book really have kind of changed my life, not just because I am the author of this book. This book changed my life because I was in Jacksonville, Florida, many, many years ago as a teacher. And I had the opportunity to teach some kids that came from, they look like me. 98% of them, they look like me. Black kids. And I wouldn't say, let me not say kids, black, people of color, BIPOC, young man and young woman. Let me just say it like that. Because I think when we refer to children as kids, we're really saying that their parents really are a goat, right? Because only goat have kids. Does that make sense? All right, so let me say young man and women. I was teaching these future gentlemen and women, and one of the things that they struggle with that self-esteem. They're saying that, oh, Mr. Guy, we're nothing. They told us we're not going to be anything. They told us we're not going to be able to read or whatever. That's who we are. Many of them said that. And it dawned on me that these kids are working a word and a series of words, right? It creates some almost like a stopping point in their brain that stops them from going to the next level. And so they were working the wrong words, so they were getting the wrong results. And then I told them, I said, I want you to imagine that words were a paycheck. And every time you show up to work, whatever you say, that's going to determine how much you get paid. So if you keep saying that you're not, then that's exactly what's going to happen. And so we work with them on reframing their word. Nowadays, from my research, we learned that that's a form of DBT, or talk therapy, meaning that I'm helping them to reframe what they're saying. Does that make sense? Reframe what they're saying by saying a word that will create a different outcome, because it's going to elicit a different kind of emotional response. If I keep saying not, that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to see a whole bunch of nots. If I keep seeing barriers, if I keep seeing things not working out, then that's what I'm looking for. You will see what you look for, right? I always say to people, I say, don't look at what you see what you're looking at. Because a lot of time we only see our skin tone and we play the race card. We see limitation, we say limitation, and so we live limitation, and then we end up having limitations. So we think it's because of our skin tone and our color. That's why we're having what we're having. I'm here to let you know that your success, your outcome, your output in life has nothing to do with your skin tone. It has to do with your intellectual capacity and your ability to see opportunity and seize opportunity. I want to tell you that when you see a bunch of knots, I want you to reframe that. In psychology, we learn that's called reframing. Reframing simply means that it doesn't matter if something is bad, I can always look for the good in it, right? If you listen to me for the first time, I want to encourage you to go check out these two books. They're on my website, andrewguyspeaks.com. My first book here, Work Your Words, which I'm going to read something from there. And then my other book is called The Anatomy of the Kingdom and the Power of Community. What is it about? The anatomy is us. It's our body. So you talk about the anatomy of the kingdom. The kingdom is a function, but the constituencies of the kingdom is us. Right? And how we maneuver in the kingdom, how we relate one to another. And the purpose of the kingdom is to bring heaven to earth. Does that make sense? Heaven to earth. The function of heaven to earth. So when we talk about the kingdom is really about a function. It's not a religion, it's a function. All right, fantastic. Go pick up the book, check it out. And we have a course that's coming up, and then there's going to be a new release coming from this book called the Power of Community, unleashing the kingdom mindset in your generation. Powerful book is coming up. All right, so let me read you something from the Work Your Words, and this is just from the introduction. It says, words create everything visible and invisible. Hyphen, let there be, and there it was. The universe. Bang! It wasn't a bang theory. It was spoken. It was spoken. It wasn't a bang and it just happened. It was spoken. It was created. The next verse went on to say, words are powerful, so be mindful what you say. Words are a result of everything your senses reveal to us. Like an atom, words are the raw material and the building blocks of everything that matter. They are the threads of yesterday, the fabric of today, and the clothing of our tomorrow. The future that awaits us at the end of our thinking. The future that awaits us, me and you, at the end of our thinking. Now, a lot of people say the future is what it's going to be because, when we die, we go into the grave. No. Before you die, there is a thinking and a thought process and a thought pattern that you end up dying with. A lot of time, it's different from the one that you were born with. It's different from the one that you were raised with. And it's different from the one that you basically meander your way through life with, right? It is that culminating thought pattern, that sense of belief, your belief system, your philosophy that you leave the earth with. So this is why I say the future that awaits you at the end of your thinking. There is a great book by James. Where is he? There's a great book, one of my favorite books. It's supposed to be on the shelf here. It's around here somewhere. It's by James Allen. It's called As a Man Thinketh. I want to recommend that you get this book in addition to these two books. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Go get that book. Amazing book. It will revolutionize the way you think. All right? So let's continue. He said, this book is designed to encourage and to motivate you to dream, to think, to become, inspire, and to then work the words you speak to create the world you want. As you read this book, I hope that you will discover and be convinced that you can have what you say. That's all I'm going to read from this. You can have what you say. But you're saying, Andrew, break that down for me, brother. Break that down. The back of the book, here's what I'm going to give you for the synopsis of the back of the book, and I'm going to break that down. Remember, we're talking about knowing your triggers and how to control them. All talking about mental wellness here. But I wanted to share something from this book to help you to understand that part of your mental well-being and your mental wellness has to do with your communication. And the communication is the self-communication, what you use to yourself, what you say to yourself, when you say into yourself, when you speak into yourself, what you're thinking, when you're thinking about what you're thinking, when you're thinking to yourself, by yourself, for yourself. Does that make sense? We call that in psychology meta cognition. That means I am aware of my thinking. I understand what I'm thinking. So this is what I want to help you to understand. On this book, Work Your Words, it's saying both failure and success are products of the mind. Therefore, your limitation exists by the way you think, and your world is manifested through the words you speak. It's manifested through the words you speak. Work Your Words was written as a resource to empower people to discover their gifts and to use them to impact the world. You will be inspired to discover the real you, dream big, establish your brand, because you are a brand, the Inc. brand. Become label free and to turn challenge into triumphs. This is the book that is going to help you to make these things happen in your life. Go to andrewguyspeaks.com and pick up your copy. All right. New book is coming out. I just want to talk a little bit about that's called Win Where You Are. Stop waiting to become. Stop waiting to become. That is the book that is going to revolutionize your life. It is a revolution writing the book. It is amazing. The journey has been so far-fetched. It's been so deep. It's been so, man, it has been a journey. And when we say win where you are, so many people are trying to win everywhere else but where they are. They're trying to go to the future before they win where they are. They're trying to go to space before they master Earth. They're trying to go out there before they win in here. They're trying to win the game, the sports game, before they win the game of life. I'm here to let you know you better win where you are, because if you haven't won where you are, you will lose everywhere else you go. Does that make sense? If you have not win where you are, you will lose everywhere you go. All right. So let's talk about the business. Let's talk about the business. We're talking about now knowing your trigger. What is a trigger? A trigger is something that sets you off. A trigger is something that you could be having your calmest day. You could be having a tranquil moment and boom, somebody says something that bam, that just triggers you. It caused you to, it sets your mind into an excitatory state where you're not fight or flight. You want to fight. It causes the excitatory cells in your body to become heightened, where you feel like you want to fight. You feel like you want to defend. You feel like you got to put up your guard. You're now triggered. And so it could be something that was said to you when you were a young boy or a young girl or a young man or a young woman. And then this could metastasize itself later on in life. Metastasize, that means it gets festered, it gets worse. Okay, so I may use some terminology. I'll try to break them down to make sure you understand it, but it is the language of our profession. This is what we do. So when I talk about the triggers, I want to really help you to understand that just like a gun in a bullet, just like a bullet in a gun, rephrasing, it's there and it will remain there until it gets dislodged from the chamber. It gets dislodged from the chamber because someone pulls the trigger. But before the trigger is pulled, there's a thinking process that happens. I'm going to say it again. Before the trigger is pulled, there's a thinking process that happened. So the gun really didn't really hurt somebody. I know in the United States and in places across the world, they're talking about gun control. It's not a gun control issue we're having. We're having a mind control issue here. It's not gun control. It's not the problem. It's a mind control. I didn't say brain control, mind control. Because as a man thinketh, and I believe that James Allen is absolutely correct because it's scripturally based. As a man thinketh, so is he. If a man is thinking he's going to hurt somebody, then he is a hurt person trying to hurt another person. Only hurt people hurt other people, because either they don't want to see those people happy, or they simply just don't want another person to experience something that they've never had. So it could be because they're miserable and they want other people to feel what they are feeling. So when we talk about hurt people, hurt other people, it's a mindset. That's the reason why we don't really care too much about gun control. I don't. It's a mind control that we need to do. If you fix the minds of the people, then guess what? You won't have any gun problem because the gun doesn't pick itself up. It doesn't get up off the shelf. It doesn't come out of the holster and say, I'm just going to let this bullet out. The bullet don't leave the shelf and load themselves into the gun. I know it seems like I'm going off on a tangent here, but I'm not. The reason why is because I say knowing your triggers, and the word trigger is related to the gun, the pistol. And so that's what we're using as our analogy to help you to understand. Here is how triggers manifest themselves. At the end of the trigger, there's a bullet, and the bullet, at the end of the bullet, there's a life, or it impacts somebody else's life and or lives. Normally, when a trigger is pulled, a bullet is released from the gun. It doesn't just hurt one person. Many people are hurt. If you look across the United States, the shootings that are happening there, look across Canada, shootings that are happening there. And a lot of people say, oh, well, because we're in the North or we're in Canada, then we are, those things don't happen. Nah, they just don't happen in Canada. But I'm here to let you know they can happen anywhere. But the issue that I'm trying to get you to see is that it's not a gun problem. It is a mindset problem. And I'm going to talk about the next part now. We're still discussing knowing your triggers and how to control them. When we talk about mindset, I want you to think of a clock. I want you to think of something that I can set that has a timer on it. And let's say, for example, I'm using an analog clock. If I move both of the hand, the small hand and the big hand, or the hour hand and the minute hand, and I put it on 12, what time would it be? Bam, you're smart. It is 12 o'clock. If I take both of those hands, right? If I take both of those hands and I put the small hand on the 3 and then I put the minute hand on the 9, what time would it be? Boom, 2:45. All right, last one, you're smart. I know this one's going to get you. I know it's going to get you. If I take the small hand, I put on the 12, and I take the big hand and I put it on the 6, what time would it be? Exactly. 12:30, as we would say in Jamaica, half past. Does that make sense? Half past. Now, what am I saying that? And why am I saying that? Your mind can be like a clock. Like whatever you set it on, that is what time it is. If you set it on love, it's on love. If you set it on hate, I don't care what your skin tone is, it is on hate. And so what I want to get you to understand is wherever your mind is set, whatever is set on, that's exactly the time it is going to manifest. How do we set our clocks? We set our clocks by how we think. So if I am thinking distorted thinking or thoughts, then that thinking will generate a feeling inside of me. There's an emotional response that gets triggered based on how I'm thinking, based on the mindset that I have my clock, my mental clock set on. I want to send a big shout out to Bell Let's Talk. If you are watching this, I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you, possibly an interview about this thing, knowing your triggers and how to control them. And so you can feel free to reach out, DM me, or go to andrewguyspeaks.com. Let's rock and roll and get back in this thing. So when we talk about this this trigger factor, we're really trying to figure out what does this look like. And then we talk about the mindset. We said the mindset, and we use the metaphor of the clock or the analogy of the clock. We say that your mindset is based on what you're thinking, and it can be identical to a clock. And I gave you some examples of the times where the big hand is, where the small hand is, where the hour hand is, and where the minute hand is. And then you told me those times. So that tells me that you understand the factors of timing. And if I put those hands on those particular numbers on the analog clock, then it's going to give me a time. Does that make sense? All right. I will ask you every now and again if that makes sense. The purpose of doing that is the teacher in me. And it's really to check for understanding. It's really to check to see that you're not here to just be entertained. You're really here. My purpose in life is to build resilient learners and leaders for life. That's it, because every resilient person is a learner, and every learner should lead. And they should first lead themselves before they lead anybody else. And that is my mission in life. I do that through speaking engagement. I'm a corporate speaker. I'm a resilience consultant where I go into companies and they call me in to do staff development training to help teams work cohesively, to pick out and to pull out the skill sets that teams need so they can build a core team to move their companies forward. I work on diversity issue too. That is not my calling, so to speak. However, I understand diversity because my background in anatomy and physiology. I understand it where I go in there and I say, let me take the theory out of the DEI and make it practical so you can understand it. The reason why and why my talk resonate with this corporation is because I give them something that they can take with them anywhere. I'll pause there so you can get it. I give them their bodies back to them. I know you're laughing. You say, Andrew, chill out, dude. Keep it real here. I use the anatomy of the body to explain diversity, and nobody else does that like myself. That's what I do. And so I help them to understand here are the different muscles in the bodies. Some are longus, some are brevis. Brevis means short, longus means long. And some are have a pinnate approach to them. Some are striated, some are smooth, and some work in the digestive tract. Some work are their skeletal muscle, and so they're long muscles, and so they're fast twitching muscles, and there are also like muscles that deal with a loading. These are not fast twitching. These are like bulky muscles that help with the lifting and stuff like that. Slow twitching muscles. Why am I talking about muscles? I use that to help them to understand that the different muscles, like my fingers, they're pointing in different direction based on where the muscles pulling them. But based on the thought pattern and the leadership that's happening in their company, what they need to do is to take the fingers and make a fist. I gave them this analogy and I said, when you want to do something and you have the right intention, then you will call for the right attention. So your intention results to an attention where you get the attention of your team and your company and the constituencies that work in your company to form a fist so you can pack a punch and impact the lives of those who are on your staff. So I use the anatomy and physiology to help them to understand that there are different muscles in the body, just like there are different thinking that happens in their company. There are different people. Some are short, some are tall, some are wide, some are slender. These represent different parts in the body. But if we're looking at it from a kingdom point of view, we look at it from Ephesians 4 verse 6, and we're saying that if the eye says I am not part of the body because I am not the one that's carrying the body as the legs, is it not part of the body? Because I am not the mouth that's delivering the message, am I not important? Because I am not the heart that pumps all the blood through the working tissues of the body to deliver the nutrients, to deliver the oxygen, and to deliver all of these components that is necessary for the body to function, does it fail to be part of the body? Because the whole body is not an ear, then how will it smell? Then how will it think? If the whole body were just the skin, which is the largest organ in the body, then it would fail to do what? It would fail to exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide. Do you get the picture here? What I'm trying to get you to understand from a diversity perspective is simply this, that all things are working together for the good of the company. Everything works together. We just got to make sure we put the right pieces and components together. Does that make sense? Right? And so we tell them that there's a sequence, because one group of muscle are pulling, the other group of muscles are relaxing, or should I say allowing the contraction of that muscle to take place. I'll give a perfect example. So if I do like this, then you see my shirt, it kind of crushes on this side. It creases on this side. This simply means that these muscles are shortening. And then on the other side, you can see that it's stretched out. So the muscles on this side are stretched out or elongated. The muscles on this side are short and compressed because they're pulling in this direction. Everybody, that makes sense to everybody? So when I do like that, see how my skin gathers right there? Fantastic. That means this muscle's shorter. Then if you look on the other side, this is stretched out. That means elongated. So this is given this permission to be. Everybody get that? So this is why I give them something that they can take with themselves. I help the leaders to understand that they don't always have to have the last say. I help the leaders to understand the nuggets and to find the nuggets within their company so they can use those nuggets, right? Because the nuggets obviously are chips that come off the block. Does that make sense? So a nugget, refer to it as a golden nugget. And these golden nuggets must come off something bigger. So the bigger thing is the bigger philosophy that drives the company. So whatever the bigger thought processes and we go over things like mindset, we go over things like mission statement, vision statement, and we go over things like future statement. Okay, so mission, vision, future statement, and value statement. So we go over those 4 things and we help them to address the issues that they're dealing with. So that's how I deal with DEI. Whenever they call me to do DEI, you're going to get an anatomy. You're going to get a lesson. You're going to help you to understand, oh my gosh, my heart is working. It's part of the circulatory system, but it's also part of the respiratory system, because when the blood comes into the lung, then it transfers to the heart, and then it goes to the right atrium, goes down, and then the left atrium pumps it out to the rest of the body, right? So a quick analogy to help you to understand that you can take that with you. You don't have to run and go get a book so you can read and suffocating yourself trying to figure it out. The DEI process from an anatomy perspective, when Andrew E. Guy showed up, you're going to take that with you. You're going to get it, you're going to learn it, you're going to love it, and it's going to make sense. And you can apply it, because I'm taking theory and make it into practice so you can make it happen. All right? If you're interested in that program, go to my website, andrewguyspeaks.com, and book me to come out, and we do a half a day, we do a full day, or we can do multiple days. All right? We'll make this work based on the budget. All right? All right. So here we go. Let's get back to what we're talking about. We're talking about knowing your triggers and how to control them. We gave several analogies. We talked about the mindset, right? Because we're saying how you think, and we refer to one of my famous writer, the famous book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. We talked about that. We said how you're thinking generates a feeling, and how you feel creates a behavior that when you follow through with that behavior, it creates an action and an outcome. So at the end of it, that is going to be the result of your thinking. We read something from the book, Work Your Words, that book up there, and we talked about it. We said, here's what's happening. The future that you have is at the end of your thinking. Does that make sense? Because we're going back to the thought process. Now, let's jump into the part we're talking about, knowing your triggers. Talk about it. We gave the example of the gun, and we went off into a little tangent, really, to talk a little bit about what gun is and gun control and all that kind of stuff. I know if that doesn't apply to you, fine, I get it. But you live in an area where guns are everywhere. And the reason why I talked about it is because we are affected by guns, right? And then I use that to give you the example of the trigger. What does the role of the trigger do to the gun and to the bullet? We saying that at the end of every bullet, something is impacted. Sometimes it's not one life. It's never one life. It's lives and livelihood and nations and community and worlds are impacted by at the end of a bullet. Does that make sense? Now, let's bring it home so we can make sense of it and make it practical. When we talk about triggers, triggers are not, they don't just happen. They happen as a result of a thought process. The same thing that goes for the gun. When the trigger is pulled, the trigger doesn't pull by itself. The bullet doesn't come out of the gun by itself. It doesn't come out of the shaft by itself. It's the thinking that caused the person to feel, and then they have the action of pulling the trigger with an intent to cause harm. And said at the end of that bullet is the life that's impacted, or lives that get impacted. At the end of your trigger, lives are impacted. People are impacted. And a lot of times they never make it back to what they used to be. They are shattered. They are disrupted for life. And so the goal here is to help you to manage your triggers. If you can manage your triggers, then nobody can push your button. Have you ever been in a situation where you're on the job and somebody just come up and say something to you, this out of the blue, left field? I'm talking curveball. People will come up and say something to you because they want to see what's inside of you. Sometimes they're trying to agitate you. Sometimes they're just trying to see if they can get a rise out of you. And this just doesn't happen in the workplace. when we talking about this DEI stuff and diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's part of one of the stuff that I deal with when I'm doing my talk. I'm talking about the atmosphere that people create on the campus and or the workplace. And I said, okay, how you address people determines how they feel and how they think, and if they feel welcome. You might alienate them, right? I'm not talking about just including everyone into everything, because this thing of inclusion is misconstrued. People think that everyone needs to be a part of everything. Not so. If a person is not qualified for doing the thing, I don't think they should do the thing until they get qualified to do the thing, right? A great friend of mine, colleague of mine, Dr. Omai, said that when people post on social media, they should put aspiring to. And I completely resonate with that, because a lot of people out there are coaching, teaching, and they should be saying aspire to be, instead of giving people false information that they can't help them, right? So here's what I want to help you to understand. This is what I do. I'm a registered psychotherapist, qualifying, and this is what I do. I have been doing this coaching for over 15 years, working with corporation, working with teachers. I've been working with these individuals for many, many, many years. I'm not here to toot my horn and say I know it all, because every day is a student role for me. I am in the learning because I want to learn more. And I am actually going to school now to complete another master's degree, so I can understand more about myself, so I can help myself, so I can create a thought process that's going to benefit me, and then use that when I have that level of success, that I can go out there and teach it to other people. So I am in the process right now. This is what I'm doing. And so I want to give you some information to help you to make sure you can understand how to understand and know what your triggers are. So now let's recap. Did it make sense when I talk about the gun and the bullet, and that the gun is not the issue, the bullets are not the issue, it's people that are the issue, and not just any people are the issue, it's the thinking that's the issue. So, and we talked about mindset. I like to go back and review to make sure you get it, it sinks in. And then we go back and we talk about mindset. We use the clock. We said that if the clock is set on this time, that is exactly what time it is, right? But here is the next part I'm going to give you. You know that we live in different parts of the world, and based on the the meridian system and time system and the zones, it could be one time in one country and a different time in another country, right? The same thing applies to your thinking, that you can have a thought about a particular thing, and then another person have a different thought about the same thing. So two individuals can have two different thought processes about the same event. Does that make sense? So one person can look at a black person and say, hey, there goes the N-word. Here goes a person who's not going to be anything. Here goes a person who doesn't deserve the same opportunities as everyone else. So let's treat him a different way. Let's disenfranchise him, right? And then another person can look at the same person and say, wow, what an amazing young man. What an amazing individual. I don't see color, I see content of their character, and they should be known by such, right? So we have two different individuals, and they're looking at this one person, and then they see two different outcomes. So what I want to help you to understand is that how we see the world, in psychology, we call it a world view. How we see the world determines how we experience the world. How we see people determines how we experience them. And if you're seeing them from a distorted mindset or distorted thinking, then that's exactly how you will experience them. The purpose of this talk today is to help you to understand how your thinking determines how you feel, and how your feeling and your emotion drives your behavior, which changes and alters your outcome. When it changes the outcome, it changes the experience that you have with yourself, with others, in a community, on a workplace, or wherever you live, work, and play. My goal here is to help you to understand when these triggers come up, how to identify them. And the next part of this, before we finish our talk today, is to give you some tips that you can use to mitigate, to reduce the effect of the triggers when they come. Does that make sense? All right, so let's go. Number one, I want you to look at the trigger, as I mentioned earlier, as a what? Mindset. So whatever your mind is set on, that's exactly how you're going to feel. It's going to generate the feeling. So what I want you to do is to be mindful. Not just mindful as the cliche way of what they're saying over there. Oh, let's just be mindful. And mindful has been thrown around like a baseball and everyone's taking a swing at it and cannot hit a home run. That's not what I'm talking about. As you know, there are a plethora of individuals out there who are teaching who just should not be out there teaching. But you know what? That's not my calling to say. If somebody wants to say something, I've learned over the years that we're not in position to say a person should not be teaching. But what I learned is that every man, according to Florence, I forget the lady that wrote the book. It's called The Game of Life. Great book. Check it out. First name is Florence. And so she said that every man is a link in my chain of success. That means we cannot just discard someone because we think that what they're teaching doesn't line up, right? So that's an error in thinking. I used to think like that, but I don't anymore. It might not resonate with you, but not every message is supposed to resonate with you. Does that make sense? So you allow people to say their piece, right? But you may think that it's not worth anything today. And the perfect example of that is Disney. A lot of people are experiencing the magic of Disney because of his thought process. Back in the day, they say that he was dull. They say that he wasn't, he doesn't have a good imagination. He wasn't creative. You know, his boss fired him because they said, oh, well, Disney, you're not going to cut it around here. You don't have the thought processes and the thinking, the creativity to last in this company. They fired him. Well, that was back in the day, but they found out wrong later, right? Because now Disney saying imagination is the coming of attraction. And I guarantee if you've been to Florida, I guarantee you have tasted the magic. You've seen the magic. You've lived the magic. You've ridden the magic. You have basically experienced the magic of Disney. And so what I'm saying to you, I wouldn't write people off because what they're saying doesn't resonate with them. All right. So I've learned that lesson. I have thought about that lesson and I've reflected on that. So now what I do is I say what I have to say, and if it resonates with you, great. If it's not what you need right now, you may need it tomorrow or even next year. But what it is basically, I just allow people to be. I just allow people to be. And so by being, if we allow everyone to be, we never know, we might get a nugget from something that they're saying. All right, so we just got to look for the good in everyone. Let's move on. That's the first thing to recognize in your trigger. Number one is to look for the good in every man. I'm not just talking about man as in a sex. I'm talking about man as humanity. Look for the good in every man. That's number one. That's how you'll recognize your trigger. That's one aspect. It is a spiritual aspect. It's a spiritual function. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about going to church and clapping up and sweating, running around the church like you on some kind of track and field. That's not what I'm talking about. If you need a gym membership, go to the gym. Don't wait till you go to church and start running around, sweating it up, talking about, oh, Lord, I'm running. Try to make 100. 99 and a half won't do. That's not what I'm talking about. You can be running. But what I'm saying to you, do what works for you. If you feel like you got to run, go on. Kick your shoes off and do your thing. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is this is the spiritual aspect. It's how you see other people. Are you looking at them with a distorted thinking based on your lived experience or something that you've been through that has hurt you, that has caused you hurt, and you're now internalizing that and using that as a way to paint a picture? Or to paint someone with, I would call, a traumatized paintbrush. So if the paintbrush is traumatized, right, you're going to have some weird streaks in your paint job. And I even go a little deeper. If the painter is traumatized, even if you have a brand new brush, the paint job is going to be trauma inflicted. I'll say it again. If the painter is traumatized, or have a distorted thinking, then every stroke will be trauma inflicted, and the paint job, every stroke will not be smooth because it's trauma. Case in point, if you listen to some of the music that people are singing today, they're basically selling their trauma. Ding, 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 ding. You can place a comment in there, right there, right there. You can put a pin there. What we call music nowadays, it's not really music. It's really trauma that is put on record and has been sold for millions and billions of dollars, and people have become wealthy from selling their trauma. They put it on wax, they put it on disket. Now it's electronically done, and you are buying that trauma. Don't believe me? You listen to a certain song and it puts you in that particular mood. It literally puts you in that spiritual mood. And you become, without knowing, you become exactly, or even worse, based on how you internalize it, you become everything that lyric is talking to your psychology. It's training your psychology to become traumatized. A lot of the music that you hear today is trauma being rehashed and resold, and you are internalizing it and calling that music. Watch what you listen to. That's number 2. Remember, number 1 is to what? Look for the good in humanity. There's got to be something good about somebody that you can find. Look for it. I don't say you're not always going to see it. There's a difference between seeing and looking. People, let me talk to you. There's a difference between seeing and looking. Seeing is a function of what? The ocular nerve that helps me to see, right? That's the nerve that helps me to see. Looking is intentional. You got to look for the thing. You will see a landscape, but you would have to look for the architecture in it. You will see a human being, but you have to look for the good, because everyone looks the same depending on where you're looking. You can't just see someone and see the goodness. You got to look for the good. Seeing is different from looking. Seeing is a function of the eyes. Looking is an intention based on the person's mindset. So number 1, you want to do what? You want to look for the good in every man, because I said every man is a link in your chain of good. Okay? I got that quote from a book called The Game of Life. Go check it out. Powerful book. I recommend it. Make it happen. The next one, number 2, is to be mindful of the ears, the ear gates. Be mindful of what you're listening to. You can't just think of your ear gate as a gate. It's a vault. So when we think of it now, these are gates. They're channels. And they open up. And they allow things in. They never let things out. They only take things in. So when you are listening to people, you're taking in things. Be careful of what you're hearing, because you can hear yourself criticizing other people if you listen carefully. Does that make sense? So when you're listening to people, don't listen with a distorted thinking. Listen with an open mind. Listen with a curious mind. Listen with a mind of curiosity that I can learn. Listen with a studious mind. Listen with a mind that, man, I can learn something from that person, because every man has the possibility to teach me something. So number 2, to understanding and knowing your trigger and how to control them is what? You got to control what you listen to. Because if you listen to the wrong people, then you can be triggered. These people will say something that will cause you to go right back. I'm going to give you a perfect example of going back. One of my favorite movies that I watch with my sons all the time is Ratatouille. And Ego is one of the character in there. And then Ratatouille is a dish. And then one day he allowed a rat, right, to cook for him. He ate the thing, and when he bit into the ratatouille, boom, the camera quickly zoomed in and warped into him showing right back at his mama's doorstep. Just a taste of the ratatouille. He went right back to remembering, wow, my mama used to cook this. This was a poor man's meal. and he remembered from whence he came, and he completely humbled himself right there. And that's what changed ego to now recognizing that little rat, okay, as Remy, recognizing Remy as anyone can cook. Just like Gusto said. That's just a little side lesson from the movie. Let's get back, Andrew. Let's get back now. Chill out now, bro. And so what we're talking about now, you want to be careful of what you listen to. Because if you listen to the wrong thing, just like how ego bit into the ratatouille, and then the one that was served to him by Remy the rat, then he ended up back. Sometimes we re-trigger ourselves based on who we listen to. So you got to be careful who you're listening to. You listen to the wrong people, then guess what? You're going to be triggered. You can trigger yourself and go right back and have that same lived experience all over again. Number one, we're going to look for the good in people. Number two, we're going to guard our ear gates. We're going to guard our ear gates. How to recognize your triggers and how to control them. How you see people, your worldview determines what triggers you. How you listen and what you listen to determines how you hear and what triggers you. Does that make sense? The next thing, number three. I'm only giving you three today. The next one is simply this. You need to reflect. You really need to reflect on what you're seeing, how you're experiencing the world, your worldview, and you really need to reflect on how you're hearing. So you're going to take 1 and 2 and put them together to make 3. That's how you get number 3. I'm going to reflect on how I see the people, how I see the world, and number 2, I am going to be mindful of what I'm hearing. And when I hear and see the world, I am going to reflect on that. The reflection now is taking into consideration my experience in the world with myself and people. And then it's going to determine how I respond. Let me say it again. Not how I react, but how I respond. A person who responds is not triggered. A person who reacts is triggered. There's a difference between responding and reacting. Reacting is almost like when you put two chemicals together, it's a result of chemicals. Right? It's a result of chemicals. If when somebody says something to me, I'm triggered, and then all of a sudden cortisol, this hormone, flushes and rushes through my system, then it's going to lead to that. Hey, I want to defend myself here. A feeling of insecurity, a feeling of not good enough, a feeling of worth gets raveled, a feeling of depression, a feeling of not enough, a feeling of lack. All of these things, and I'm now upset, and then my TikTok muscles get activated. See, these muscles down here are the TikTok muscles. I've shown them to you before, and that's what they are. When you get mad, they look like that, and then you feel like that, and all this pressure comes up in your neck, and you look like that. This muscle is called the platysma muscle. That's what it is. Okay? And so you take all of this emotion in, because of what you're thinking, how you're seeing people, how you're seeing the world, and what you're hearing, and what you're listening to, what you're letting into your gates. And then when you reflect on that, that is what we call processing. See that? See that comes together, that makes sense, right? High five. Boom. Leave a comment. Boom. Share that with everybody in the world. Boom. People that you love. Boom. Share it with your workplace. Boom. Go to andrewguyspeaks.com. Boom. Book me to come and speak to your audience. Boom. Book me to come and do a 2-day conference. Boom. And let's make it happen. Because we're building resilient leaders who are learners for what? Life. That's what we're doing. Let's wrap this up in a bow and make it digestible and palatable so you can get it and make sense. Right? All right. Here you go. So we're saying that I have to see people in a different light. I can't cook them in my prejudice sauce. I can't cook them in a racist sauce. I can't marinate them in my ignorant frame of mind. I got to let them be, right? So I got to be mindful and full of mind of how I am seeing people and the world and my interaction with it. That's number one. We talked about that. Number two, we said we have to manage our ear gates. We said we got to be careful and be full of care how we hear. Because how we hear determines what? How we understand and how we're being understood and how we deal with the words that people say to us. And we call that communication. When we look at the seeing and how we view, and then we look at our hearing, we're going to say we are going to reflect on it. When we reflect on it, we call that processing our lived experience and making sense of it. Not sensing it, but making sense of it. Sensing it is because of the five senses. And I truly believe that there are more than five senses. There are many more out there. But the fives, that's what they talk about, the big five, right? And so making sense of something and how we sense it is different. So if I go outside and I started getting goosebumps, that means the temperature might be low. That's my body sensing it. But making sense of it, I said, okay, fine. I know that the temperature is low, so I need to do A, B, C, D to insulate myself. So I'm making sense of it. Does that make sense? I always ask that because the teacher in me allows me to do that to make sure that we're on the same page. I'm being understood so we can have an understanding, so we can overstand together. You make it, boom, pound it, bam. All right. So when we go through this process now of understanding how we're seeing people, how we're hearing people, then we can process what's called the lived experience. And when we have this nice lived experience, and then we can decide, here is the caveat now. Here's the takeaway. You want to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything else in between. Because there's some ugly-ish, there's some bad-ish, and there's some goodish, okay? There's some whitish, there's some blackish, there's some ish. And the ish simply mean not completely it. That's what ish mean. Means not completely it. It's close to. So blackish, whitish, racist-ish, prejudice-ish. It's on the border. It means borderline. All right? So I want you to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the issues in between. Right? When you do that, I want you to own it. Don't run away from it. You want to own it or you want to toss it. That's how you're going to handle it. I want to look at my experience of what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm sensing, and making sense of it. And I want to do two things. I want to own it. I want to say, man, I like the way I'm feeling. I like the way I'm thinking. Or I can say, I don't like the way I'm feeling. I don't like the way I'm thinking. And this thinking is not benefiting me. It's not helping me to grow. It's not helping my relationship with other people. It's not helping me where I live, work, and play, and even where I pray. It's not helping me. And if it's not helping me, it's not helping other people. So I need to look at it and put them in two fists. Do I keep it or do I toss it? That's how you deal with your triggers. If I toss it, that simply means I am not going to focus on that thing. I'm going to focus on something that's going to help me to grow. All right? I mentioned these two books, Work Your Words, Finding Your Pathway to Personal Success. Go to andrewguyspeaks.com, pick up a copy. The course is coming. Go to my site, pick up this book called The Anatomy of the Kingdom and the Power of Community. Go pick that book up, andrewguyspeaks.com. New book is coming out called Win Where You Are. Go pick that book up. The next book, the sequel to this one called The Power of Community, is coming. It's coming. It's coming. Okay, it's coming. I'm warning you right now. It's coming. It's going to be amazing. All right. So get all these material. We got courses coming out. We're launching our new platform called Greatest Impact University. It's going to be fire. Okay. It's a membership site where you can get all this training, all of this information. I'm telling you right now, like I'm telling you, it's going to rain. So when it starts to rain, baby, I want you to get out there, get plugged in. I want you to run over there to YouTube, and I want you to follow me. Go out there. All of you go and follow me out there on YouTube. That is at Andrew Guy Speaks. You can go and follow me out there on my podcast, Ala Podcast. I'm listening. I'm ready. That is youtube.com at Andrew Guy Speaks. Go and follow me right now so you can get all of this detail and all of this good stuff that I'm going to be bringing. It's going to happen. It's hot. So here, we have wrapped everything up. We've talked about how to recognize your triggers and how to control them. This is a boatload of information we just dropped here. And I hope that you will go back. This is also part of our course that we're putting out there. So make sure you get a hold of it and get all this information. It's going to also be available on our membership site too, so you can go back and look at it again and again and again and again. And we're going to chop it up into chapters to make sure that you can go and pick out exactly what you need. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. So the last part I want to talk about is now you look at it, you want to own it or you want to toss it. That's how you deal with triggers. So when you get this thinking based on how you see people, how you hear them, how you interact with them, and then that information comes in, you reflect on it, you process it, and then when you process it, you decide, am I going to keep it? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this an ugly thing? How does this help me to respond or react to other people? If it's not good, then you need to decide, I'm going to toss it. Tossing it simply mean I am going to replace that or reframe that thinking with a thinking or thought processes that is non-distorted, so I'm able to have a conversation with that other human being. And that first human being that you're going to have a conversation is with yourself. I hope this was enjoyable for you because it was enjoyable for me. I want to encourage you. Remember, if you don't understand how and what triggers are, I hope this teaching helps you. I really hope that you would go out there and share this with other people and tell them about Andrew E. Guy and talk to your workplace and see if you can bring me out to give this teaching live. Because when I'm there live, wow, I can give you practical example. You can have other people around you, like-minded people, so you can grow. All right. I want to encourage you today. I want to thank all of my sponsors who are going to be sponsoring our new platform, Greatest Impact University. I want to really send a big shout out to Glad TV and their creators. Some of this information is going to be on Glad TV, an amazing platform. It's out there. It's coming. It's going to be amazing. So I want to let you know about that right now before it comes. There's some great things that are in the pipeline right now. Glad TV is coming. Greatest Impact University is coming. And another amazing course on self-love is coming. It's going to be, wow, epic. So ladies, if you're having issue with the self-love, a good friend of mine, her name is Rose. She's getting ready to launch our program called Self-Love. It's in the works right now. We're going to be collaborating together, and I'm telling you, she's going to be dropping some nuggets that is going to fall from the block itself. And you know that nuggets only come from one source, from a block. That means if you get a little bit of it, then you know there's got to be more. So ladies, get ready. Self-love is coming. It's going to revolutionize the way you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself. It's going to help you to take back your power that was taken from you, that was either given away voluntarily by you. You're going to recapture who you are, whose you are, find your purpose in life so you can shine radiantly. I'm telling you right now, these courses are coming. They're going to be dropping. So get ready, get ready, get ready. And some of these will be available on Glad TV. I'm telling you, get ready. I'm making the announcement right now. It's going to be LIT, lit. So get ready. So listen, I want to thank everybody for joining me on this live. If you didn't get to see the live or interact with me, boom. Some of you came on and waved. Want to give a big shout out to Capty. Want to give a big shout out to Coach Austin. Thank you for your support, my brother. And there's another couple of people on there that I can't really see because I have to turn my head to the side, right? So anyway, I want to give a big shout out to all my supporters out there. Hey, go out there and follow me on YouTube. Looking for more subscribers to get the word out. Andrew Guy Speaks out there on YouTube. You look me up anywhere, it's Andrew Guy Speaks, all right? And then also, follow me out there on the Instagram. I'm right here, Andrew Guy Speaks. If you needed help in psychotherapy help, please reach out. It's different from my coaching. This is more mental wellness therapy. Different from my coaching that I do. But if you want professional development coaching, reach out to andrewguyspeaks.com/coaching and let's get that conversation going. Reach out to me and so we can get on a call and get you on the winning side of living. All right. Until then, take care of yourself. I'll see you again. Peace.